Welcome back to Light the Fuse, your weekly dose of Mission Impossible goodness. But this week, we're doing another Wick trip. How you doing, Charles?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. We kind of had a couple weeks off where we didn't have to record these blasted intros, and, now we're back at it, creating brand new content for all the people, and it's exciting,
Yes. I feel like I never do a good job of, I don't know if anybody's new to the episode or not, but I'm Charles. That's Drew.
Yes. We're going off the assumption that people have been with us for almost 200 episodes at this point.
That's true.
Which is probably not the best assumption to make. But
yeah, it's true. David Leitch is a pretty big name here. This is awesome that we got him on the show, and someone might just be dropping by just for this interview, and now they know that they should go back and listen to all the rest of them because we've had amazing people on the show.
Yeah, both the Mission Impossible and John Wick episodes are all wonderful. So I hope if this is your first episode to go back and peruse and enjoy, because we've really got a lot of great interviews with a lot of great people. And maybe you choose somebody you've never heard of. Oh, who is this person? I'd like to hear them. And then, you go and learn something or are exposed to a really cool creative person. That's our goal on the show, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes even just kind of people who you would think are, the smaller names or the lesser important crew positions or whatever, sometimes we get so much feedback saying that those are oh, this episode was so great, and we're always like, oh wow, that's so awesome to hear. Yeah. I mean, we love all our episodes equally, I feel like, but that's always nice to get that feedback. And obviously David Leitch is someone who has kind of taken the action movie world by storm. I mean, I think if he wasn't doing all these other things, that he would be a great Mission Impossible director. Maybe years from now, after the baton has been passed or something. Yeah, and obviously we talked to Chad Stahelski before. Chad and David co-directed the first John Wick, and then Chad went on to direct solo John Wick 2 and 3, and he'll be doing John Wick 4 and 5. And it's interesting how they branched off, and they have their production company together. And David went on to direct Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, Hobbs and Shaw, and now he's about to do Bullet Train, which we talk a little bit about in one part. I can't remember if it's next week. It's probably next week.
Yeah, I think we talked to him right after he finished principal photography on Bullet Train, and now I think it has a release date of April 2022, and our other buddy, Evan Schiff, worked on that one as well. So, we just love all these people. They're all great. Yeah. So this was a real thrill. He was really lovely and really open, and I just loved chatting with him. Didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. And he was actually, just a warning, he was outside. So there is some wind and maybe some other sounds you might hear in the background because he's outside chatting with us on his side of the interview, obviously over Zoom. And also just a heads up too that the movie he produced, Nobody, with Bob Odenkirk, is another awesome action movie, is now on home video.
Yeah, I think that's all the table setting we need to do, Charles. But you know what I need to really get into right now is our sponsors.
Please.
This episode is brought to you by Jeremy Dillon, and we want to tell everybody to check out his podcast, My Favorite Album, where he interviews a different musician, songwriter, actor, or filmmaker about the music they love and how it's influenced them in their work. And Charles, we should announce here, Charles and myself are finally going on to talk about an album.
Yes.
We've been on the show before.
You shamed him.
To talk about...
You publicly called him out, and now he is finally conceding.
It's a combination of publicly calling him out and Australia going back into lockdown.
Yes, and he has got nothing else he can do.
Right. So he's going to talk to us. So we're going to be on soon, and that'll be really fun. And this episode is also brought to you by John B. So we want to thank them. And if you want to become a sponsor of Light the Fuse, take a look at our Patreon page, patreon.com/LightTheFuse, and you can sign up for the highest level and become a sponsor as well. So why don't you think about doing that? Maybe.
Yes, please do.
Please. And we will be back after the interview, this first part with David, and we'll wrap things up. Well, we are we're so excited to have you on the show, David. Thank you so much for coming on, first of all.
Oh, no worries, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. So we would love to know, because I don't know, do you have a credit on the final version of the first John Wick?
Yeah, I do. I have a producer credit.
But you co-directed.
I co-directed with Chad, and it was a funny thing that happened with the DGA. We went to I don't know if Chad told you the story, but we went to the DGA before we started doing John Wick, and we said we wanted to co-direct, and we were both DGA members for a long time. And the message we got from the DGA was that, go forth. You guys have worked together a lot as second unit directors, and we had our business together. Go forth. We'll send monitors out, and we'll make sure that you're co-directing. And then it shouldn't be a problem when you file for it after the fact. And then they sent people out during the filming, which is really strange. We were both on the call sheet as directors. We both had DGA contracts as directors. And then they pulled their answer, and they said that after, it's really strange that they said, well, it is in our rules that you can't co-direct unless you're siblings, and whoever said that shouldn't have given you permission. And I'm like, so then we had to lobby the board to try to get co-director credit, and Lionsgate was helping and Keanu was helping, but the DGA is real sticklers on that. So Chad and I really just had to decide, like, do we want to fight this? Do we want to get a labor attorney involved? Like, how far do we want to go down the road? For me, it was really upsetting. I mean, being a DGA member for as long as I was and am, and currently am, that they didn't protect the members. They were more concerned about their policy, as opposed to two guys that directed a movie together that were longstanding members, that paid dues, that were advocates of the guild. And they were just like, basically, fuck you, was kind of sad.
Right.
But it's water under the bridge. I mean, Chad and I just had to decide, like, basically rock, paper, scissors, like, who's going to take this? And
wow.
It wasn't easy, but it was also easy. It was like, Chad had a great relationship with Keanu. They arranged a full producer credit for me, a PGA producer credit. And I'm like, it's cool. We're all going to go on and direct more stuff. Like, but it was great that the press and that Lionsgate publicly was always like, these guys co-directed, and the DGA formality, and look, everyone in Hollywood knew the story, so it is what it is. Right. Yeah.
I mean, would you guys have pursued co-directing things if this hadn't have happened? Like, would you have maybe co-directed?
It wasn't the fact that we didn't get the DGA title. I think the next time we would have. Like, I mean, there was such a battle inside of the DGA, and there were a lot of great advocates on our side inside the DGA. They were just like, this is stupid. People that we directed for as second unit directors and made them look great were real advocates of, like, these guys are both directors, just give it to them. But pursuing co-directing with Chad wasn't, it wasn't the fact that we didn't get the title. It was just more of like, we had different interests moving forward. And like, did I want to stay in the Wick world and do more there? Or did I want to find other projects to do? And so we're creatively interested in different things. And so we support each other a lot. Obviously we have our 8711, the action design company, together, but it was like, this was a real opportunity for us to break away and do twice as many movies, Right. So, yeah.
Well, Chad told us too that it wasn't even necessarily you guys were dying to direct a movie and dying to direct this movie specifically, but that the original filmmaker fell through. Keanu went to you guys and said, what do you think? And I mean, was that just sort of an amazing sort of twist of fate, or was this something that you had sort of been lobbying for?
Well, I had really been pursuing it, I think, a lot harder than Chad. I know, okay. I mean, I really wanted to direct films, and I'd been attached to some things and they fell through. But when we did get this opportunity, I was like, Chad, we should totally take advantage of this. And it was manufactured it was a lot of, fortuitous things coming together. Like, Keanu supporting us and giving us the material. The fact that Kelly, who my wife, but who was our manager at the time, had introduced us to Basil and Peter Lawson and the John Wick script just maybe like 3 weeks earlier as second unit directors. And Kelly actually had that script in-house at Sierra Affinity, where she used to work as a foreign sales agent. So there was a lot of like synergy on us being involved in that thing, but Keanu supporting us, getting us over the hump of like, these guys can direct first unit, and us, putting together the package to prove it was, just one of those great moments in where preparation and opportunity meet, great things.
Well, the original version of the script was called Scorn, right?
Yeah.
Can you take us from like when you first read that script, even as, looking at it as a second unit director, to what John Wick ultimately was? Can you take us through that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I loved the original script, and I loved the simplicity behind it, the minimalism behind it. I think Derek did an incredible job with it, and there was this great character at the center of it. I think it's Chad and my instinct, at least it was for Wick in particular, is like, well, how can we make it a world? And there was a lot of those elements in there, like the coins and like the, the hotel, and all of that stuff was there. But I think it was, and Derek could speak to it more, but it felt a little bit more grounded in the script and not sort of fabulistic and mystic like we made it. And I think it comes from our graphic novel sensibilities and our comic book sensibilities that we saw the opportunity of like busting out that world. And you can see Chad in the sequels, how he's really taken that. And that is his jam. Like, I want to expand this universe that we've created. And yeah, so I think from this really great grounded character sort of a genre movie, for whatever reason, we saw a graphic novel world inside of it. And the bones were all there. I think it's just, you put the right filmmakers on it, and we couldn't help but make it a little bit of a fable and more fantastical.
Right. Charles, I feel like I'm, monopolizing things if you want to jump in.
Well, I feel like you're going in a very good chronological order. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, and maybe we can come back, talk more about John Wick 1, obviously. But I am curious. Yeah. I'm really curious how you've stayed involved, because I know that we interviewed Elisabeth, and she said that she came in after they did John Wick 2 just to, for a screening to give notes, and she kind of said that you were more involved than she was. So I'm curious what your involvement has been, like what kind of what is, have you shepherded the projects at all in the sequels? How much do you weigh in, I guess is the question.
They're Chad's world now, and I really I'm there as a creative partner and as a friend, and as we're such longtime collaborators that we are honest with each other. We're honest sounding boards to each other. Like, so when he brings me in, it's usually I've had conversations in the sequels at the script phase, and then I'm hands off doing my own movie, and then I may come in to watch a cut, his director's cut, and then give him my thoughts, or he might have a question he wants to bounce off of me about a fight piece that he's going to do, or crewing up who should I use to choreograph this bit, or it's not formalized, and I'll say it's not extensive. I think that the sequels have really been Chad being Chad and like expressing himself creatively and taking it to the place that really speaks to him. And again, like there's all this great world building, there's all this great choreography, which is like Chad's great at and he loves. And so I come in and as a friend and a collaborator for years and just give my thoughts when he wants me to, and I'll be honest and he knows it, and he'll be honest when he watches my shit. So it's all good. And it's good to have those friendships with people that can just let you know, like, and Chad, you need to cut this down, and he says, Dave, you need to try the choreography this way. And, I reached out on Hobbs and Shaw when I was doing some additional photography, and we're trying to figure out how to do the fight scene on the back of this truck with Idris's character. And like Chad and I choreographed so many fights for so many years. It's just great to have the one guy that you can pick up the phone and say, I need a way in. Just give me a fresh way in. And then, you know, you riff together and it's like old times. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what can you give any specific what's a bit of honest advice you had to give Chad on John Wick 2 or 3? That's something that was brutal, that was like, this is not working, or, you know, this needs to be fixed?
I have a real simple note that I think that, you know, Chad and I differ in, like, I like a movie to be a little bit more of a fast pace. And I think my biggest sort of like overarching note when I'm working with Chad, even on the first Wick, was like, we got to make it shorter. And he's like, this is great. And I'm like, we got to make it shorter. And it's never about the action shorter. It's just more like, I like the movie to fall forward. And I think sometimes Chad likes to slow burn. And it's just different approaches to storytelling. And I think that's always my note. It's like, this could be shorter. Let your editors take a whack at it. Like, so, but he knows, and, you know, he finds the right sort of pace for him and for what he is as a filmmaker. And obviously they're massively successful, and we're all so proud that we got to be part of this thing that just keeps going and going. So
your process that you had, because you two worked together, you and Chad worked together as second unit directors before you did the direction of the first John Wick.
Yeah.
So was it the same? Were you able to carry over the same kind of process? I mean, what does that process look like? Was one of you talking more to actors and one of you's dealing with the camera more, or is it just a hive mind through the whole thing? How does that work?
It's more of the latter. It was never, again, that was like some of the questions that the DGA always had. They're like, well, who talks to the actors, and who's the writer, and and we're like, it's not that. We are more of a hive mind, and, you know, you sort of pick up where the other person left off. It's like, you want to go and give a note to an actor, you check with your partner and you go give a note to an actor. And the next thing is like, you know, Chad wants to give a note to an actor, like he gives a note to an actor. Like, it was never, there was never this sort of like, we're going to delineate our jobs. It was always like, we're one entity when we did second unit together. And we did a lot of second unit directing apart. And I think that that's where we got the confidence to, you know, we knew we were our own voice, but when we came together, as long as we were of like mind and like vision, that, you know, we were obviously stronger together. So we didn't, we never really delineated. We had a lot of conversations, and we're always going, it was us against them, always. In a positive way, but it was never like us against each other. It was like,
right.
We had a vision. We knew our mission from the beginning of shooting that day on what to accomplish and what we wanted. And it was very clear, and we would do whatever we needed to do to get that. Especially the first Wick was a real, you know, it was hard. It was a, you know, not a lot of resources and a big appetite. And, you know, Chad and I had second unit budgets that were bigger than the budget of that whole movie. And so
wow,
to fight the forces at hand to get what we got in that movie, which I think is obviously special because we're having a whole, you know, podcast about it. It's a lot of work, and it probably couldn't have been done without a partner that has your back, you know, and that movie in particular, you know.
Right.
Well, obviously the third leg of the John Wick table is Keanu. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering what your relationship was with him, how it was to kind of develop this character and this movie, and just, you know, obviously every time you do a movie now, people are waiting for Keanu to show up, as was evident by all the Hobbs and Shaw hypothesizing that he was going to be the big bad guy and all that. But, could you sort of take us through that a little bit?
Chad met him, I'm sure he told you, like Chad met him on The Matrix, the first one. And then I came and worked with them on the sequels. And so it was like a year of my life in Australia with the stunt team. And I was one of the Hugo Weaving doubles, doubling Agent Smith. During that time, we got really close to the cast because we were training with the cast, and we had this sort of boot camp sort of setup at Fox Studios, and when the actors weren't on set, they were kind of in training hall with the martial art team, Wu Ping's team, and with Chad and myself and the other stunt guys we had there. And so we became really close with the actors. And because Chad and I were so close, I became close with Keanu. So this was more of a friendship. And because Keanu was close with the Wachowskis, Chad and I went on. We worked on more Wachowski movies as second unit directors. So Keanu was always he knew we were out there as filmmakers making stuff, not just stunt guys anymore.
Right.
They're directing second unit. They're directing second unit with my filmmaker friends who I love, the Wachowskis. And, he's seeing our work. He's a genre fan. He loved the choreography in Ninja Assassin, or, he does his movie, Man of Tai Chi. We support him with, some training and choreography ideas. And, it's just, it's from the fertile ground of The Matrix is where it all grew from, really. Such an important film in all three of our lives. And then, that's where our relationship started. And luckily it grew into something stronger, Wick.
Do you sort of implicitly know, because you spent so much time with him, okay, he can handle this kind of fight, this is a strength of his, et cetera, when you're kind of staging and mapping out these things?
Yeah, I think what's great about Keanu is that the challenge is both ways. I mean, you will choreograph to his strengths, but then he'll also want to be challenged. And if you have an idea and you push him outside of his comfort zone, he's the kind of guy who's bullheaded enough to train to get it. And then you're like, wow, I never thought he could do that. So then your box expands and you start to think, well, maybe we can get him to do this and maybe we can get him to do that. And then you look at what, they did on The Last Wick and that opening sequence that just goes on and on and on, and all these different sort of homage to action movies, riding a horse and knife fights and, motorcycles. And it's all like, he does it all. And I think that that's great. I mean, you don't run into actors that want to do that or challenge themselves that extensively.
Right.
There's a lot of great people, but Keanu's, it's another level. I mean, it's
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've worked through so many different sort of styles of action, and Charles and I are obsessed with all these different kind of like aesthetic approaches to action. I mean, you've done Bourne, you've done, more classic martial arts, and so when you're trying to decide what's right for John Wick or some of the movies you've directed by yourself, where do you fall? Like, do you like the shaky cam stuff more than sort of steady cam? I mean, like, where do you sort of land? Obviously, Atomic Blonde has this amazing long tracking shot where you see everything, but I mean, what is your approach, I guess?
I want to say every movie is different. I think, I approach it as, Chad and I approach it is that we're choreographers first. And so you want to make sure that the action and the way you were going to shoot the action supports the story and the overall sort of style of the film. And it's propping up the characters in the story. I think what was fresh about John Wick, and like we had a vision of what we wanted to see in the action that we hadn't seen in a long time. You're talking about shaky cam, and that was sort of at the height of when shaky cam was in. And as second unit directors, we had to do a lot of it, and we knew how to do it, and it was fine. You could shoot sharp shutter, you could shoot 22 frames, you can do a lot of things to make the camera help make the camera and use these techniques to sort of like up the energy of what's going on in front of the lens. But John Wick was sort of our response to that is like, we want to make the action in front of the lens so compelling that we don't have to do much with the camera, and it's like an inspiration for that might be Ong Bak, where it's like Tony Jaa is so good, you just put the camera on a set of sticks and he kicks a guy in the head and you're like, what am I watching right now, right? And could we do that with a guy like Keanu? And we do some, there's beautiful composition. Our cinematographer Jonathan Sella, who still works with me, helped us build a beautiful world, even in the composition of the action. But if you look at the first Wick, it's like there's a lot of just wide shots of Keanu doing martial arts really well. And there's nothing that can beat that in our eyes. I had a great mentor early on in my second unit career, this guy Ringo Lam, who passed away a couple years ago. He's a Hong Kong director. And he told me, he's like, David Leitch, you always worry about the angle. You always worry about the angle. I don't give a shit about the angle. You know, he's like, you could put the camera anywhere, but if there's truth in front of the lens, that's all the audience cares about. That's all they care about. And yes and no, as I've learned, like, you know, creative camera work like we did in Atomic Blonde can really suck the audience in. But there is something to be said for that, in that if the performance isn't there, you can fake it all you want, and then it just feels fake. You know, you watch a television show and it's like 75 angles and it's all cut up and there's energy, but you kind of like, I think there was a fight in there. Or you watch you watch John Wick and Keanu in these longer takes, and you're like, wow,
yeah,
he's doing it. I feel it. So
right.
I have an appreciation for all of it. Long-winded answer. I have appreciation for all of it, and I think the movie dictates it. But for us, we had a real vision when we went into Wick. It's like, this is what we're doing, and we're going to apply it to this. And I think it was shocked people when it came out. They're just like, what? And then the combination of jiu-jitsu and gunplay together, which we had been playing with for years. And it's funny, we had pitched that to different directors, like, hey, you should put this kind of stuff into your movie. And they're like, yeah, nah, not so much. And and we're like, fine. And then we had the chance, and we're like, we're just going to do it and blow. And
Wow.
we knew as action junkies that people were going to love it, because we were shooting it on.
Yeah.
We had stunt vises of this stuff, like catalogs of it that we've had for several years. Like, and we'd show it to people. They're like, that's really cool. And I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to put it on film someday. So
were they just scared because they wanted to have, I mean, I know that's how a lot of television is made. They want to make sure they can put it together in the edit, and they don't want to have to worry about pacing all being done in camera. But that's a style that I adore. So it's part of what made us fall in love with John Wick, you know?
Yeah, I think the fear was, oftentimes as a second unit director, Chad and I were a little different. We had a lot of freedom, and the people that we got to work with respected us so much, of like taking the action from A to B, generally just give us whole sequences. But there's still some, obviously the violence level that we were playing with in John Wick, you needed in our movie. And then also the fact that you're right. The instinct of a director is like, I need options. I got to cut it up. What if I need to shorten it? Give me a tight shot just in case, and like, yeah, that stuff you don't really shoot it that way. You're like, no, we're living in this. You got it. It's great. You just saw it. Yeah, you got it.
Cowards. They're cowards.
So to ask another director to do that, it's not easy, but when it's yours, you can take the risks. And I think we always try to do in our movies,
We haven't seen Bullet Train, obviously, but your movies have gotten bigger and bigger, and Hobbs and Shaw was insane. And I imagine it is very fun to, work with Weta and stuff like that. But do you ever kind of want to do another kind of John Wick 1 down and dirty? Gritty?
Oh, yeah. Look, I think, we had a lot of fun. Now that you bring it up, we produced Nobody. Kelly and I produced Nobody 2 years ago now in Winnipeg. And it was a really, really fun experience. We were there the whole time. We were on set, the sort of mentoring Ilya. And Ilya's a great director, and we had a great DP on the movie, and Greg Rementer was a great stunt coordinator. But it was fun to get back to the basics of like, hey, we only have this amount of resources, guys. We need a really great analog car chase with a gimmick in the middle. We need a couple great fight scenes that are visceral and memorable, and we need a great character. And we only have X amount of days, and how do we do this? And actually, I do love it. I really love it. But I also love the movies where we have all these resources and we get to play with all these toys, and we get to reach a big audience. And so, yes, I do. And with the right material, I would love to do a small movie again and bust it out.
Right. And Nobody is fucking great. I know that not everyone has seen it yet, but I got to see it and it's amazing. I loved it. So you should be very proud too.
Thanks. Yeah, we had fun.
Yeah.
You know, again,
You can tell.
the spirit of Wick,
Yeah.
it was just like, let's make we had a small amount of resources and we're going to make it character forward and find some provocative moments and make it short. It's tight. It's really tight. It's you know, it's like just over 90 minutes. It's like you get on the roller coaster and you don't stop.
Love that.
Boom. So
Right.
So you got, you know, like you mentioned, Jonathan has gone on to shoot movies with you, and Elisabeth has gone on to edit movies for you. Was that part of the rock paper scissors game that Chad would get the credit, and then you would take all the cool people with you after it?
No, I don't think it was anything. It wasn't a game. I didn't win Rochambeau. I got producer, but I got the talent.
Yeah.
No, I think it was really the materials that were involved. Like, I think Atomic Blonde had a script. It was called Coldest City at that time. A little earlier, before Wick 2 did. I was up and running a little bit faster. I don't know. I mean, it just people... Jonathan and Elisabeth are artists in their own right, and I think they're like, in their minds, like, maybe I did Wick. Now this is a cool female protagonist Cold War thing. Let's try that. Like, I don't. All I know is I asked, and they said sure. So, and
well,
we've been on the same time.
Elisabeth said she's game for an Atomic Blonde 2. Do you think you could give us one of those?
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I honestly don't know what's going on with it because the rights have always been so cloudy with the graphic novel holder. Sierra Affinity has a piece of it. I know Netflix has tried to put it all in one small pile, and really? maybe down the line we can make one, but who knows? I mean,
so maybe there's hope that Netflix can make it happen.
They got that money.
Yeah, you know. Again, and I think that's a movie where you probably want to make it for a certain price just to keep it gritty and hardcore like the first one, you know?
David Leitch, part 1, in the bag.
It's in the bag. This is really awesome talking to David, and it was fascinating to hear about the DGA battle that they had to go through to try to get co-director credit and ultimately fail.
Yeah, what's that about? You're a member. Can't you do anything?
It's a strange thing that they have that like it's hard. It was harder even before years ago, but I think it's still difficult for anybody who, especially like, maybe the Coen brothers. The early Coen brothers movies didn't have co-credit as director, and then finally they were able to do it, and now it seems like, I think David even said that they're more lenient on brother teams than they are on non-brother teams, which is so funny, but that's just an arbitrary thing they decided, that you're more likely to be an actual co-directing team if you're brothers by blood.
Right. Well, I want to also tee up that you ask him about the possibility of an Atomic Blonde 2, and we talk a little bit more about Atomic Blonde in the next episode. So I just want to make sure that we got a lot of Atomic Blonde heads out there that there is more discussed in the next episode. But I really appreciated you just trying to get us another one, Charles. That was really thoughtful.
Well, I love, Charlize Theron, I think is like one of our great actresses, and she's so awesome and badass, and so I'd love to see her do anything, and it's cool to see her in that role. So I'd love to see it. And I mean, there was so much, just so much. I feel like I have too many things to go through. I'm going to go through them quickly if I can. But I thought it was so interesting how they have different philosophies on running time, Chad and David.
Yep.
Like Chad is very, as we talk to Chad and Evan Schiff, you'd hear about how Chad wants things to breathe more, and David is much more about keeping things, tight. And I thought that was kind of an interesting push and pull that they have.
Well, I was going to tell you that I was just on the phone with Joe Johnson a few weeks ago, and he said no scene should last longer than 2.5 minutes.
Really? Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't think I passed that on Night Owls. I think those scenes probably go on for a while because it's two people talking. I'd have to look, though, because we do move them around the house quite a bit and we tried to keep it interesting by keeping them moving and going to different sections of the house constantly and keep the camera moving and everything. So I'd have to look and see, but I think we probably hit 3 or 4 minutes on a couple of those scenes. Anyway.
Well,
I failed you, Joe Johnston.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool that he talked about Ong Bak, that movie that came out. That movie kind of blew me away when I saw it in theaters. It was the closest I'd seen someone get to Jackie Chan level of like choreography and stunts and things, and it really blew me away when I saw it in theaters. I feel like you might have told me about that movie.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw it. I didn't see it in theaters. I think we got an import of it at the video store where I was working.
I found it in a theater. They were playing it at a theater in Pasadena. I don't know if it was the Rialto or what it was, but I remember I went all the way out there to go see it, and then I drove all the way out there again to go see it a second time and I brought some more people to go see it because I was so blown away, and I thought it was so cool. He made another one that was really great too. That was Tony Jaa, who we're talking about. Sorry, Tony Jaa made another movie that was great that was called The Protector.
Yes,
but I didn't really keep up with a lot of his work after that. I think he doesn't have the same humor that Jackie Chan has. That's the one thing that's missing. But it's still great. He showed up in Furious 7 also.
Yep.
But and then I did not know that Ringo Lam was a mentor of David's. That was cool to hear.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Ringo's movie City on Fire is a huge influence on Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs.
Yes. Some would argue less an influence and more like Tarantino just photocopied City on Fire.
Do you think it was that close, or do you think that was kind of a thing people have thrown out there because they're jealous, or you think it really is a photocopy? It's been a while since I've seen City on Fire.
I just remember there was a pretty incendiary YouTube video, like in the early days of YouTube, that was about.
It was showing comparisons.
Yeah, I was showing comparisons, and the City on Fire ones were pretty damning, I will say. Listen, I don't think anything he does is a direct copy. I think it gets kind of turned around and spiced up and all this stuff. But yeah,
you'd argue that some people probably would argue that De Palma is kind of like that with his influences as well.
Right. And I think Tarantino is smart to be referencing a bunch of movies that no one can see, which is helpful too. So you're not like, wait a minute.
Yeah, some of his references are so obscure.
Yes.
It was crazy hearing that directors, when David was doing second unit stuff, directors wouldn't go for that long take style that they ended up using in John Wick. And it seems like a lot of the directors are afraid to commit to things on set. And I get the fear, but to me, some of my favorite films take those chances and put you in that moment. And it's part of why I love John Wick so much. Yeah,
it was really interesting to hear his philosophy. Obviously, there's a lot of long takes in Atomic Blonde too that are very memorable. And I thought it was really illuminating, and it was wonderful that he's such a nice guy too. Yeah. I mean, he was just fabulous. So
the whole John Wick team has been such an amazing kind of family group of people that are so kind, and it's been awesome to be able to interview so many of them.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's all I've got. So I'm just going to say that people should sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/LightTheFuse. And we've actually been doing some really fun stuff on the Patreon lately. We did our top 5 Pixar movies of all time. It was a kind of a mega episode. I think it was like an hour long. And we just broke down our favorite Pixar movies in honor of the release of Luca, which just came out, which is on Disney Plus, and we both highly recommend. We did our top 5 De Palma movies and talked a lot about De Palma's filmography, and that's a really great episode as well, to get you into De Palma if you haven't seen much of his stuff, and also to start a conversation with you if you have seen and love his movies. We're going to do one for Richard Donner, who just passed away. We love Richard Donner, the director of The Omen and the original Superman. And we're going to do, and The Goonies, we're going to do a Patreon episode to talk about him and his career and how much we love him. So sign up for our Patreon, bonus content. We're going to do commentaries for the John Wick movies. Please sign up. It supports the show. You can also support the show by buying merchandise from our website. Go to lightthefusepodcast.com. In the merch section there, it will link you to our TeePublic page where you can buy shirts and masks and all kinds of other things. Also, while you're on the website, go to the episode guide and check out our show notes. We've got really great show notes for every episode. That's a really awesome visual companion for every episode. And what else, Drew?
Well, if you could subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening to this podcast, that would be really helpful. And just tell people about it. Tweet at us, email us, whatever you want. We always are looking for show ideas and Patreon ideas and want to hear your feedback. So if you could do that, it would be really, really great and really helpful for us.
Yeah, thank you so much. So many people clue us into certain crew members that we have overlooked or we didn't realize work, some just like we're getting people on the show because of you out there reaching out to us and saying, hey, you should talk to this stunt person who, was the stuntman on Ghost Protocol, and he's also this and worked on that. And so then we reach out to them and then we set up interviews, and so it works out. So please, if you have ideas, we're always all ears to hear them. So I just want to say also a special thank you to Eddie Santos, and I want to credit our editor and mixer, Luke Burson, and also our intern, Parth Morate. And I also want to credit our wonderful composer, Kevin Blumenfeld, who gave us our John Wick-esque music. And I guess that's it for this week. Come back for part 2. David Leitch is really awesome. We talk about a lot of other things you'll love. We talk about working with the Wachowskis, David Fincher, Anchorman 2. He tells us some great Anchorman 2 stories, and it's great. Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. The doors to any service or provider in connection with the Continental are now closed.